Before we get started, a brief reminder that any and all opinions and views shared by hosts and guests on this podcast are the speaker's own and do not represent the views of Primal Kitchen or its affiliates or parent company.
I do a 24-hour fast every week. Sunday mornings, I get up and I eat a big breakfast, and I don't eat again until Monday breakfast.
Interesting.
It's our self-cleaning mode. That's why fasting, goes back thousands of years as part of just normal cultures around the world.
So I could eat like dinner Sunday night and then just not eat again until Monday.
I am more of a fan, and I think the studies are really starting to show this, that you're better off skipping dinner rather than breakfast. You're better off eating breakfast, lunch, and then not eating until breakfast the next day.
Interesting. Hey, so excited to have you here. Welcome, Dr. Timms. Is that what I'm supposed to call you, Dr. Timms?
Dr. Lucas or Dr. Tim?
Okay, I'll go Dr. Lucas then. I'm more of an informal person.
When you have a double first name syndrome, you can
Yeah.
go both ways.
I
Yeah.
hear you. I love it. Well, welcome. We're so excited to have you. I want to know how you got into this whole cancer thing.
Yeah. Well, I was in medical school, and as life happens, I met a girl, and we, hit it off and started dating and became pretty serious. And about a year into that relationship, boom, she got diagnosed with cancer.
No way. What kind?
She had thyroid cancer, but she
Okay.
had a particularly aggressive form of thyroid cancer.
Did she have to
So
have her thyroid removed?
she had surgery.
Okay.
And she, I was in the middle of medical school, so I still didn't really know
Yeah.
much about medicine. I was
For
still
sure.
cutting my teeth, obviously, but that girl would go on to later become my wife,
Okay.
obviously. And
Yeah.
so that's sort of my origin story is, being in medical school, not really knowing like if I wanted to specialize in something. I thought maybe I wanted to, focus on just gut health and things like that. But here comes this like almost this omen. It was like, okay. And from that moment on, it was just I couldn't get enough information in terms of like how does what is cancer, first of all. I feel like there's not a lot of great succinct definitions out there for people. I feel like it's this big bad word that people don't want to say.
Yeah.
They don't really know how to explain it. They just say, oh yeah, it can be incurable, it's really bad. I had family members that died from it. It's usually just negative connotations, right?
Yeah.
But I went through that process with then my girlfriend, now my wife, and it really was eye opening for me because back then, of course, she did everything by the book, conventional medicine. She had surgery, all the therapies that they do that were very standard. Okay, she went to a very, very, high end. I won't name names, but a very high end cancer center for that.
Okay.
And I was tagging along for a lot of her appointments, and I have to say, I went into those meetings thinking, oh my gosh, okay, she's at this place. This is one of the best places she could be. These people are going to be brilliant. They're going to be amazing doctors. And honestly, Morgan, like I was just really disappointed.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it.
Yeah. You're just in the system.
It's
Like,
like
what? Yeah.
they're in the room 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, boom, boom, bang. Here's your thing.
This is what we do. We do the
Ye-
same thing for everyone.
Into the conveyor belt.
Okay.
And it's like, wow, well, I mean, anybody could have done that,
Yeah.
really. I mean, I know these people are smart and they've been through a lot of training, but and obviously the surgeon, that's something you obviously need. But it was almost like going to Oz and like pulling back the curtain.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I was just really kind of disappointed. And then so that kind of molded me a little bit. And I was like, man, this is gotta be something better than this, right? But this is one of these top institutions. So turns out that is kind of what all these places do, despite saying, well, we're a top cancer center, whether it's MD Anderson or Memorial Sloan Kettering, Mayo. You go to all these places, the only thing that's really going to be different is they may have some different types of clinical trials they're doing there, but all the standard of care therapies, if you have a diagnosis and you're looking for immediate treatment, you're going to get the same thing pretty much at all those places.
Yeah.
It's pretty cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So that kind of piqued my interest and was like, okay, I want to be not only a resource for my, this woman that I'm falling in love with that's going through this terrible thing, but it it almost got my brain working towards like, okay, I want to make a career out of this. And it became more of a passion than just a profession at that point. And so,
When you were in school, were you like tapping all your teachers, being like, my wife has this, blah, blah, blah. Like, what should I do? Like, I mean,
well, again, she wasn't my wife at that time.
yeah.
So there was a little bit of gray area, but um, yeah, I mean, there was probably some of that. I think back, this was 16 years ago now.
Yeah.
So trying to think back, I still
But you weren't well networked then. You didn't even have the resources
I
probably.
didn't really. I didn't really. I mean, I was still very green
Yeah.
myself,
Okay.
obviously. And so, but it really focused my pursuit in terms of making sure that I got every available opportunity to do specialized training in oncology, which is what led me to City of Hope, formerly known as Cancer Treatment Centers of America. I did a hospital-based residency that was steeped for 2 years in integrative oncology.
Got
And
it.
that's really where
Where was City of Hope?
so City of Hope is their flagship is in this area.
I thought
Yeah,
so.
it's in
Yeah.
California.
Okay.
They merged with Cancer Treatment Centers of America. So when I was there, it was called Cancer Treatment Centers of
Okay.
America, and they had several locations around the country. But when they all merged, they all became a City of Hope.
Got it. Okay.
So
And what's the deal for those listening who have
yeah,
never heard of Cancer Treatment Centers of America or City of Hope? Like, how would you describe those?
so it's changed over the years, but the model was when I did my training there, which again, this was 14, 15 years ago. Their sort of model was we want to offer everything that a cancer patient might need, conventional and integrative and alternative, all under one roof.
Okay.
Okay, it's a great concept,
Yeah.
great model. I mean, that's what people are still looking for today. The execution of the model was not great,
Okay.
and a lot of that, uh, there was a lot of factors at play, when a lot of policies got passed that had to do with Obamacare, reimbursement went down. And so, Cancer Treatment Centers of America was really subsidizing a lot of the integrative and alternative therapies for patients because they got reimbursed so well for things like
Got it.
surgeries and
Okay.
chemotherapy. And so they were able to make that model work when Obamacare and all those policy changes came down the pipe. It really changed how much they get reimbursed. And so they weren't able to really
The
afford
margin structure didn't work to be able to pay
margins. So
for
like,
the
okay,
yeah.
we got to get back to like what's bringing money in, and
Yeah, to
that's
keep
these
the
conventional
lights on.
treatments.
Got it. Okay.
So that was unfortunate because I really believed in their mission, vision, values as far as what they were when I signed up for it.
Yeah.
And I stayed. I mean, I was there for 8 years. Last two years I was there, I served as their medical director for integrative oncology.
Yeah.
I
You
was
were
drinking the
yeah,
Kool-Aid. I was
for
in
sure.
it. Yeah. Um, but it just step by step started fizzling out, and it became less and less about the patient, more and more about profits.
Yeah.
And which I get it. It's a for-profit hospital.
Yeah.
So that led me to um, am I jumping too far ahead
No, no,
now?
this is
Or
good. This is
okay.
good. Just have-
That led me to the Reardon Clinic
Okay.
back in
I was gonna ask, like, so are there clinics that are doing it well? Because
we'll get to that.
okay.
So the Reardon Clinic kind of the opportunity to work at the Reardon Clinic presented itself as I was sort of getting, fed up with sort of the scene
Yeah.
at Cancer Treatment Centers of America, now City of Hope. And so that opportunity presented itself, and I ended up, really liking the people at Reardon Clinic. They have a really great history in terms of doing a lot of research with not only cancer, but things like IV vitamin C, really progressive types of treatments that are
Cool.
not offered by the mainstream. And so they were really big in research, big in community education and patient care. Those were their three pillars. And they're a nonprofit. So I was like, that's great. I always wanted to work for a
Yeah.
nonprofit. I think that a nonprofit's mission, vision, values align more with how I see myself practicing, where let's make it about the patients and not about just how much money can we make.
Yeah.
So signed on with them in 2018, moved from Arizona to Kansas City. So one weather extreme to the next.
Yeah.
And hit it off great for a few years and did research there, saw a ton of patients, developed a ton of integrative oncology programs. But you got to see that that was not the all-in-one model. Reardon Clinic strictly just does more of the alternative integrative
Got
type
it. Okay.
therapies.
So you're kind of like they're coming in, they're working with a regular oncologist who's doing chemo, and then you're supplementing. You're kind of
Typically,
trying to piece programs together.
yes, exactly. It wasn't that all under one roof where we're all working as a team like
Got
we
it.
had at City of Hope,
Got it.
which was really nice, where the oncologist and I could converse on a daily basis. They trusted me. Now I've got this divide where, they're in their silo, I'm in my silo, and
Yeah.
this patient that's going back and forth. And, they're telling them, oh, don't do any of that stuff. it's there's not enough research. It might interfere with the chemo, and it's hard for me to have those one-on-one conversations with them to say,
Yeah.
look, there are certain things we need to be careful with, but this is okay to do. And
Yeah.
so
Did you ever prescribe chemo, or were you mostly
no,
in your career mostly focusing?
no, because at City of Hope, we had people that were strictly that was their job, and then
Got it.
I focused more on the integrative
Got it.
support.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you were fine working with patients who were
Oh, it was
undergoing
great.
conventional therapies. Got it.
It
Okay.
was
You're like,
great.
how can I make it more effective and better and all of those things?
Yeah, and I truly believe that in most situations, you're going to get the best outcomes with cancer, especially advanced stage cancer, when you combine the best of both
Got it.
worlds.
Okay.
I just feel like there's strengths and weaknesses on both sides, and they complement each other so well
Yeah.
because we can get into like the different types of cancer cells and the fact that chemotherapy is really good against the offspring cells, whereas IV vitamin C and mistletoe and things that work through the immune system are much better at dealing with cancer stem
Okay.
cells.
What is mistletoe?
What is mistletoe?
Yeah.
Um, Well, we have to make a clear distinction that, the mistletoe that we're used to hearing about here in the States is that, the ceremonial plant that we use around the holidays, right?
Right.
Well, in Europe, mistletoe is really just known as a medicinal plant.
Oh,
They don't
interesting.
really connect it with Christmas and things
Okay.
like that
It's
over
not
there.
like something you kiss under and you're
It's not the
okay.
kissing plant over there. Although, I mean, I think they know about it from here, but it's been used as a medicinal plant medicine for decades,
Okay.
probably close to 100 years, dating all the way back to Rudolf Steiner, who's a
Yeah.
real iconic figure of, in
Yeah.
medicine and other areas. But yeah, there's a long history there, especially in countries like Germany, Switzerland, Austria. Um, so I learned about mistletoe when I was in my residency at City of Hope, and immediately asked for a kind of like a pause in my program because I wanted to go spend 3 months in Germany learning about mistletoe.
Oh,
And I
cool.
was like, I want to bring this over here. 'Cause there
Yeah.
was a few doctors doing it in the States back then, not as much as there are now, but I was like, this is such a cool therapy because I had met a series of patients that had been over to these Germany cancer clinics,
Oh,
had
interesting.
done mistletoe, and were still doing it, but they were having a tough time kind of coordinating it.
When you say they've done mistletoe, like, are we talking like something that you like smoke, like weed, or what is mistletoe? Like, I'm
I
just
wish
so.
I don't know. I don't know if
uh,
it's studied as an
Is
inhaled
it an
medicine.
oil? Like, what is it? Is it
No.
like a ayahuasca?
If you Google mistletoe, you'll probably see some oral type extracts and things like that for
Okay.
sale. But really, the way that we're talking about it, the way that it's used for cancer support is either through an injection,
Okay.
um, a very simple injection, but an injection nonetheless. It's a subcutaneous injection, very similar to the way insulin is delivered for diabetics,
Got it. Yep.
or in a more uh, high dose fashion given IV
Okay.
intravenously. Okay, so these are
So you could
these are
combine it with vitamin C therapy, IV therapy.
oftentimes they are combined.
Okay.
Usually not in the same bag or the
Got
same
it.
treatment setting, but usually they're used in tandem for they're two. I would say when you look at the list of potential integrative oncology therapies that are out there, those two probably float to the top pretty easily because they've been around for a long time. They have the best human data, right?
Interesting.
It's really to the point where it's kind of when you look at the data on things like IV vitamin C and mistletoe, it almost, as you go deeper and deeper, you're like, why aren't these things
Yeah.
FDA approved? Why aren't we doing these things in the mainstream?
Interesting.
And so you kind of go down that.
And what does the
route.
data say? Like killing cancer cells, or like, what does the data say?
Yeah. So for IV vitamin C, like I alluded to earlier, it's one of the big problems. I'll back up a little bit. One of the big problems with cancer is people get a diagnosis. They have a tumor somewhere. They get chemotherapy, and all of a sudden they get a clean scan and they say, "Oh, you're cured. Cancer
Yeah.
went away," right? A year later, it's back,
Yeah.
right? You've
Okay.
probably heard that
Of
story
course.
before.
Right. Yeah.
So what happened there, right? If the chemotherapy and nothing was on the scan, what happened? Well, what happens in those situations, and this is pretty common when you're only doing standard of care therapies, is in a tumor, you've got different types of cells. You've got the cells that really start the tumor process, which we call cancer stem cells. Um, and then those are usually very few in a tumor, but those give rise to offspring cells, daughter
Okay.
cells, if you will. So you've got kind of this core unit of cancer stem cells, which are very, very flexible in terms of what types of fuel sources they can use. They're they're immature cells, right? Because stem cells, just like our healthy stem cells in our body, they can go on to mature into all different types of things in our body. These stem cells that are part of the cancer problem are just as dangerous or just as flexible. And so these are the ones that you hit someone with chemotherapy, it wipes out all those offspring cells, which is usually what makes up about 95% of a tumor. So on a scan, it looks like everything's gone, but you've got these kind of sleeper cells, right? These cancer stem cells that are able to withstand the storm of the chemotherapy.
And then do the same thing all
And then, they may lie dormant for 6 months, they may lie dormant for a year, but at some point, those can be triggered again.
okay.
And then they start growing, and then guess what? They're much more resistant, they're much more aggressive.
Oh,
And the treatments and the new offspring they're giving rise to, that treatment you hit them with a year ago doesn't work. Yeah.
got it.
So that's one of the big challenges in cancer care is dealing with these resistant cells. And they'll call it chemo resistance or drug resistance, treatment resistant. And from the conventional wisdom side, it's more, well, we just have to keep developing a new mousetrap for it,
Right.
a new drug. But none of these drugs are really effective against the cancer stem cells. But
Got
you know
it.
what it is? IV vitamin C.
Interesting.
That's one of the few therapies that we've discovered that rather than having this grenade effect against the offspring, it's more like a sniper rifle towards these cancer stem cells.
Interesting.
And the real cool thing about it is that the IV vitamin C, in a lot of cases, is not really killing these cancer stem cells, it's rehabilitating them. Because you got to remember, cancer cells they're our own cells.
Right.
Right.
How many of us have cancer cells floating
We all-
around it? We all do. I mean,
we all
that's what I was
I
wondering
mean,
about that.
maybe
When
newborn.
you get a cancer diagnosis, it's almost like you've probably had cancer cells in your body for
7 to 10
Yeah,
years
okay.
in most cases. You've got some more aggressive rapid onset ones now that are showing up maybe over the course of a year or two, but 90% of the time cancers are going to be a slow building process over years and years. But yeah, we all have, I don't know if I would say we all have cancer cells, but we all have cancerous cells because again, it doesn't take one DNA mutation to make a cancer cell. You need multiple hits.
Got it.
So you got some cells that have taken a couple of hits, but they're still like they haven't fully gone rogue yet.
Yeah.
They could still be rehabilitated, or your immune system could still detect those cells and help them.
So should we all be doing vitamin C IVs preventatively?
Potentially.
Okay. I have so many questions for you. But carry on. Sorry. Okay.
I mean, there's the other thing that we know about IV vitamin C, which is again another knock on why isn't this approved for treatment, is we know it's extremely safe.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
There's really no
diarrhea. I mean, too much vitamin C, but that's
only with oral.
That's
You don't get that
oral.
with the IV
Okay.
because you're obviously bypassing the gut. There's some very rare genetic issues, like there's something called G6PD deficiency, which is a
Okay.
hereditary mutation that if you have that, potentially it could set you up for some really bad side effects with high dose vitamin C.
Would you find out?
But we always screen people for that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I think I've been doing this a while. I think I've only had one patient over the years.
Okay.
Like it's a very, very small number of people that have that issue.
Got it.
You have to monitor kidney function. You have to monitor people that have lots of fluid or tension issues. There's some things, I mean, people don't just do this at home. It's not a DIY type thing. You have to have medical
course, yeah.
supervision. But relatively speaking, it's an extremely safe therapy
Yeah.
with little to no downside, as long as it's done under the right supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mistletoe, is another great therapy, like I mentioned, to combine with IV vitamin C and even with chemotherapy. It's an approved therapy. It actually has become approved by the FDA version of what they have in Europe for cancer support, because what it mainly does is it helps blunt the toxicity to the immune system that chemotherapy has. Okay. So one of the big problems with patients going through chemotherapy is it lowers their white blood cell count,
Yeah.
lowers their infection fighting cells. So they're much more likely to pick up a pneumonia virus. And sometimes patients, that's what gets them, not the cancer.
Yeah.
And then of course we know that there's cumulative effects there. Well, one of the things the mistletoe therapy can help offset or mitigate is that immune suppression you get with chemotherapy. And that's one of the main reasons why is used as part of the standard model in those countries.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. There's a lot of bureaucracy, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, here in the States. We are seeing some momentum. Johns Hopkins has done a few studies now with mistletoe and even IV vitamin C. And so you're seeing some of these bigger academic
Catching
institutions
on.
starting to catch on.
But who's going to fund the research? And
That's what, if it was a novel drug that could be patented, then the funding would have been there
right.
years ago.
Of course.
Because someone would have been, because again, you got to think about it. We've set this system up as medicine is big business.
Right.
And cancer care is probably one of the biggest sectors of that business. And we've set the game up so that, the incentives are there for drug companies to develop drugs that don't cure cancer, but delay the death of cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's the game we've set up. And so we kind of throw our hands up and say, why haven't we gotten any breakthroughs with cancer? Why haven't we cured cancer now? We've had a war on cancer for 70 years. We haven't set the game up to really answer that question.
Yeah.
And we haven't set the game up to where the patients are the winners. The people that are making money off the patients are the winners, the way we've set it up.
Yeah. So besides mistletoe and vitamin C IV, like what other things do you do? Would you say first line treatments?
Yeah, there's so much. I really pride myself on not doing anything cookie cutter. Are we okay?
Yeah. No.
My
mic is just like right in my face. But it's fine. Sorry, editing team.
That's all right. Better they see your face.
No.
So I really try to take each person's case. And one of the big things that I'm about with patients is trying to figure out, why did you get cancer in the first place?
Yeah.
Sort of root cause medicine or terrain theory, whatever you want to call it. But I really start with testing so that I can figure out what are the different variables that we need to address for that patient, because I can line up 10 patients with breast cancer that are all around the same age, same demographics. But if we do sort of our root cause testing, all 10 of those patients are probably going to look different. Probably gonna need different things.
And what does your root cause testing entail?
Good question. So we do a lot of different types of investigations. We look at toxins, we look at gut health, we look at nutrient levels, we look at hormones, we look at inflammation, we look at stress, all the things that
Like almost like a functional medicine panel with the
it's
addition of like
exactly.
stool and something
Exactly.
else. Okay.
Exactly.
So you're just going deep on the all around diagnostics.
100%, 100%. But that could lead us in so many different ways. There's so many tools out there now, between, of course, supplements and nutraceuticals, but off-label drugs have a place.
Like ivermectin. I know this is a controversial word with an I, but I did see one doctor I follow who's just posting, like, someone asked about ivermectin and cancer, and he listed like 6 ways that it was effective at.
It's the studies are tremendous. And it's like, the pandemic kind of shown this.
Yeah, just polarize this drug that's been around for 40 years. And now we can't even talk about it without being labeled a conspiracy theorist. I'm with you. Okay. But it is.
I don't have anything to add to that.
But it is interesting.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know if there was validity to that.
There is.
So I'm
There
not
absolutely
suffering from the
is.
bias, but yeah.
And to be honest, I kind of, in some ways, there was a silver lining to the pandemic, because I didn't even realize there was that much research on ivermectin. And so it caused me to kind of go back and start looking at this stuff. But there's lots of other drugs that have shown promise, things like metformin,
Oh, yeah.
old diabetic drug, and
What metformin, like with what kind of cancer? I'm so curious about that.
well, most of the studies are in breast cancer,
But you could use it in any.
you can use it in any. And again, it's not like I look at, oh, you have this type of cancer, we need to do this. I more so look at people kind of agnostic of their tumor type.
Got it.
And say, okay, this is what your terrain looks like. Because again, I'm not the one who's killing their cancer cells. That's what the conventional doctors do.
Yeah.
I'm looking at, how do we heal the soil?
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, it's, we have all these different types of fancy names for cancer. It really just depends on where in the body. It's just anatomical.
Got it. Okay.
There's different types of, sarcomas and adenocarcinomas and, squamous cell carcinoma, things like that. That really just has to do with like where in the body it is, and, what type of origin tissue it started in. But at the end of the day, cancer that's why we have these hallmarks of cancer, right? And we know that we thought there was only 6. Now we know there's about 10 hallmarks of cancer.
What does that mean, a hallmark of cancer?
So there was a real landmark study that was done in the early 2000s, where these two guys came together and they basically looked at cancers across the board, and they wanted to look at the common denominators of all these different types of cancers. And they came up with what they called at that time, they called the 6 hallmarks of cancer.
Okay.
Things like immune system evasion. Cancer cells all had the ability to hide and escape our immune system, because our immune system's really, when we talk about everyone has cancer cells, well, why doesn't everybody have cancer then? Because most of us, our immune systems are working well, and our immune system has a very inherent effect where it searches and looks for cancer cells on a daily basis and detects them and gets rid of them before they become a problem. So if your immune system's working well and you're not making loads and loads of cancer, more than it can keep up with, you're going to be okay, even if you're making some cancer cells.
Got it.
Right. But these hallmarks of cancer, one was, they evade the immune system. Another one was this angiogenesis effect, where they can, once tumors get to a certain size, they can recruit new blood vessels to gain more nutrients and fuel sources and spread and grow. And so they found these 6 hallmarks of cancer. But then as time's gone on, the last 20 years, we've identified new areas that seem to fit all the different types of cancer cells. They all do these certain things. And so going back to sort of my approach, we know we need to, if we've got a fast growing cancer, patient may need to have surgery, patient may need to do some chemotherapy to get that under control. But at the end of the day, what's really going to give you that long-term control is dealing with the environment that
Allowed the cancer to grow.
allowed the cancer
Yeah.
to really take a foothold.
Fair enough.
And so, I've kind of boiled my theory of root causes of cancer down to 3 categories. And this would be things that cause chronic inflammation. And that can be everything from diet, lifestyle, stress, lack of sleep, to chronic infections, viruses, fungus, parasites, you name it, biofilms, and then chronic toxicities. Okay. So these are things like chemicals that we're exposed
Lead
to,
exposure.
heavy
mold.
metals, mold toxins, pesticides, plastic chemicals.
Got it. Okay.
We have a very long list of carcinogens,
Yeah.
and they're, we've done a pretty good job of identifying what are the chemicals that we're exposed to that cause cancer. So, why aren't we talking about those things? We all we want to talk about is treating cancer. But
Right.
nobody wants to talk about prevention, or
Mhm.
nobody wants to really have a serious conversation about prevention.
Yeah.
And prevention's different than early detection. Early detection, that's okay, get your mammogram once you turn 40, colonoscopies, pap smears, those things. Those are early detection. That's not prevention. Okay. Now you can catch a cancer early, cut it out, and prevent someone from having an advanced stage cancer. But I'm talking about prevention where we're getting to people even earlier than that.
Yeah.
And we're teaching people how to live an anti-cancer lifestyle, use less products, eat as organic as possible for you.
Yep.
Have at least the awareness of all these different exposures that we have in our day-to-day lives now, which is just becoming overwhelming. So number one's awareness, but then number 2 is giving people practical solutions on how to avoid these things, or at least reduce
the toxic
the
load.
exposure and the toxic load, while also supporting their body's ability to eliminate those toxins.
And do you work with people who don't have cancer, who just want to like prevent and test and see where they're at? And
On a very limited
Okay.
basis, I've just gotten so busy with people that
do have cancer?
do
Yeah.
have cancer, and as of right now, I'm kind of a one-man show, so
Yeah.
my bandwidth's limited. But I have a few patients that I've been working with that are, they've got a strong family history,
Got it.
or they've got other strong risk factors, and
They wanna get
want to be more
Okay.
proactive. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. We kind of went on a tangent, but I think I drew you here because we were talking about metformin.
Yeah.
So you were saying there's, you got vitamin C, IV, you've got mistletoe, mistletoe. And then you've got off-label drugs. I'm sure there's diet, supplement. Like, what else are you doing with people? Are there more off-label drugs? Like, are you guys using rapamycin? I know, like,
I don't use rapamycin a lot with cancer patients. There's some longevity doctors,
Yeah, yeah,
anti-aging
for
doctors
sure.
that do that stuff. Although I think the data on that's a little bit sketchy, to be
Interesting.
honest.
Yeah.
Um, Metformin does a lot of those things actually,
Yeah.
and it
I
seems to
mean,
be a
it's
lot safer.
metformin for those listening. I would say it's like a metabolic. It's really an old diabetes
It's,
medication, but would affect
it
mostly
is.
metabolic health, huh?
I
Like,
kind of, yes, absolutely. It lowers IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, which is a huge growth factor for a lot of tumors, especially breast cancers. Um, it helps to block glucose pathways because cancer, again, the main fuel source, not the only fuel source, but the main fuel source for cancer when it's in a growth phase is glucose.
so are you like putting a lot of people on keto type diets?
Um, it depends. I don't usually put people on keto long term,
Hmm.
but if their terrain testing kind of shows that they have a lot of metabolic issues,
Hmm.
they've got a high hemoglobin A1C, they've got a high IGF, their lipids are all over the place. We'll put them on a keto diet to kind of calm things down. But and I know there's a lot of people out there that ride really hard for keto. I have not seen patients do well long term
Yeah,
on
that's
keto.
fair.
I think 3 months, 2 months, 3 months, get things under control, and then you can kind of flex to more of a, what I would call low carb Mediterranean style
Yeah.
diet. Do some fasting, periodic fasting to help with that. But yeah, keto is something I do prescribe for patients in certain situations when we really need to rein in the metabolic
Yeah.
side of things.
And tell me about fasting. Do you use that with most of your patients? Because there's a lot
I
of data
do.
there, isn't
I
there?
do. I prefer that over, these really restrictive diets because I find it's easier for
Yeah.
patients to fast. Some people fast easier than others. Again, it all comes back to their metabolic flexibility.
What
But
kind of fast are we talking?
well, there's different types of fasting programs. A lot of people that are just getting new to it, I'll recommend they do the Prolon fasting mimicking diet,
Yeah.
which is a 5-day program. That's a good sort of way to introduce people to fasting.
A doctor from what, USC, I think that's his
Yeah,
company.
Dr.
Yeah.
Longa.
Yeah, Dr.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's brilliant and he's written books and he's doing lots of research with it. And
Have
so
you ever done it?
fasting.
Prolon, the Prolon.
Oh, I do it every year.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
that's what I was going for. Because
Oh
I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, I do this once a year. I kind of
I
want
do
to
it.
do that.
I do it. I love it. I mean, I don't have like a set time I do it, but I try to do it at least once a year. But then more so what I've done the last couple of years is I do a 24-hour fast every day, every week.
Oh, interesting.
So, and the way I like to do it that I found works for me, and a lot of patients, once they get to this point where they can do this, I find that they really like it is Sunday mornings, I get up and I eat a big breakfast. And I don't eat again until Monday breakfast.
Interesting.
So I'm not really going a full like
Yeah.
calendar day without eating, but it's a 24-hour fast.
Yeah.
And I have a nice big breakfast on Sunday.
Yeah. I mean, I had Dr. Mindy Pels on the podcast, and she was really big on just like what happens to our cells as the fast is extended and how
Yes.
therapeutic they can be.
Oh,
So
it's great. I
fascinating.
mean, from a cancer standpoint, the real buzzword and what most people are looking for is that autophagy effect,
Got it.
which I'm sure Dr. Pell's
Yeah. And
had it.
Dr. Rhonda Patrick's big in the autophagy too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's our self-cleaning mode, right? I mean, if you want to talk about working with your body's own ability to deal with problems, autophagy, I mean, that's what it is. And
Yeah.
that's why fasting, goes back thousands of years as part of just normal cultures around the world.
Yeah.
Um,
So I could eat like dinner Sunday night and then just not eat again until Monday
you could,
night.
I am more of a fan, and I think the studies are really starting to show this, that you're better off fasting like you're better off skipping dinner than rather than breakfast.
Oh,
A
interesting.
lot of people do it the opposite way,
Yeah.
where
'Cause it's
they'll
kind of
eat dinner
easier and it's
and then
kind
they'll skip breakfast the next morning, especially women that are still cycling. And I know Minnie Pels talks about
of,
this.
yeah.
You're better off eating breakfast, lunch, and then not eating until breakfast the next day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I could do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know what? I think that might work better. I'm a migraine sufferer, like big time.
Mhm.
And I find that if sometimes fasting can trigger a migraine for me.
Oh,
Like,
for sure.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I think that would actually be fine. It's
Yeah.
this too long in the morning and I get,
Well, because you've got, that again, you're overlaying that fast with when your cortisol is supposed to be spiking in the morning, when you're supposed to, your body's supposed to be really revving things up, and you're kind of sending the signal that no, 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 like we're going to keep things like really restricted right now.
got it. Yeah. You're almost
That
adding cortisol on
I
cortisol.
just find that it pairs so much nicer with what our bodies are doing in the evenings versus the mornings.
Interesting. And then you're in like you're further hours into your fast when you go to sleep.
Yeah, and I sleep, people will sleep better too, I think.
Interesting.
I see that and I hear that feedback all the time. And
Okay.
then,
Okay. What
yeah.
other want to wrap this
Mhm.
off-label drugs? Are there
Yeah.
any other like big ones you're
There's
using?
tons. Low dose naltrexone's a big one.
Why have I heard of naltrexone? What's that?
Naltrexone, not to be confused with naloxone, which is like Narcan.
Okay.
But naltrexone's it is in that same class of opiate type
Got it.
medications.
Okay.
But again, we're using it at a very low dose. So naltrexone, naloxone, those can be used for people that are overdosing on opiates or having withdrawals from opiates because they flood and block the opiate receptors. What other people discovered long time ago really is that at low doses it has a much different effect on the body. What it does is it stimulates the release of endorphins, particularly in your gut. And as we know now, most people know, unless you've been living under a rock, is that most of our immune system is in our gut.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when we get that stimulation, that release of endorphins, coming, because you can get that obviously through things like exercise and other types of pleasurable activities, release endorphins in the gut. But this low dose naltrexone really pulses it. And we find that that has a very healing effect and a very calming effect on the immune system. So great for people with autoimmune
Oh,
diseases
interesting.
and things like cancer.
Interesting.
So low dose naltrexone is a big one. Doxycycline is another one that really helps, particularly when you pair it with IV vitamin C for cancer stem cells. Low dose aspirin, which again is over the counter. Different types of antiparasitics, not just ivermectin, but mebendazole and niclosamide and lots of different
Got it.
antiparasitics.
Okay. So there's a lot.
There's lots of different ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really calls for, it's again, there's not like this cookie cutter, like, oh, take these 4 drugs if you have
You
cancer.
got to look at the person.
Look at the person. And I really, I don't just put everybody on those
Well,
medications.
it seems like what I'm hearing is like you look at the person and regular oncologists might just look at the type of cancer, which is really the anatomical location of the cancer and treat the anatomical location of the cancer and then not really address the environment.
100%. And I mean, I don't blame the oncologist, to be honest. They're not set up to do that.
Yeah.
They
Is a time and a place for that. And it's you're not like anti-traditional
exactly.
treatments.
No, not at all. I mean, again, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I believe the best outcomes
When both are
come
involved.
from when you blend the two together. But it needs to be done the right way. And I think a lot of times patients are left sort of DIYing a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that can lead to lots of issues.
Yeah, I will say, like, I'm a pretty assertive person. I run a company. I'm outgoing. I don't have really any problem standing up for myself. Like, I don't. I never have. I don't know if it's like a complex. I'm only 5 feet tall that I developed where I just am kind of loud for a tiny person.
Mhm.
But doctors are scary. Like, I'm afraid to go in and express my opinion on like some I'm kind of like, I'm always like nervous. And then you're
Yeah.
kind of like lying to the doctor. And then you're just like, it can be such a weird dynamic.
Yeah. Especially in oncology. I mean, the first of all, patients going there, they're already freaked out. They're
Totally.
already scared out of their wits. And then, the oncologists, the power differential there is huge.
Yeah.
And they know that. And they're trained for that. I mean, believe me, when they go through their training, their fellowship, they're learning from the more experienced oncologists on how to handle those patient interactions
Yeah.
and some of them are better than others, obviously. Some of them have really good bedside manner, but a lot of them, it's very, very cold and clinical.
Yeah.
And it's all about the guidelines, the guidelines, the guidelines. This is what we do.
So we
Guess
don't
who
get
writes?
sued. We only have 10 minutes. Yeah.
Exactly. And guess who writes the guidelines? Not the doctors, the insurance companies and the drug companies
Yeah.
write the guidelines.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But again, we've set up this system where the stakeholders that win in this game are the people that profit off of people having cancer.
Yeah.
We have to change the incentives. That's the only way we're going to get real significant change across the board is to actually incentivize prevention, incentivize
Long-term health, like
long-term health.
cancer doesn't come back, you're bonus or something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. We can't just be okay with developing drugs that delay the death from cancer.
Yeah.
And that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So we've touched on a lot. Are there any like big treatment modalities you feel like we're missing?
I mean, there's obviously we talked to people about nutrition. We talked about that a little bit,
Yeah.
but
Mediterranean.
addressing nutrition is a big thing for
Yeah.
cancer. And, I think sometimes it gets kind of like, it's not as sexy as IV vitamin C,
Right.
mistletoe and all that, but what you put in your body 3, 4 times a day has a huge impact on your overall health.
Yeah.
And you can really shift things with the proper diet approach and making sure that you're getting enough of certain nutrients and avoiding other ones. Um, and being mindful about where you get your food and the sourcing of it and all the additives and all that.
Yeah.
It's it's quite a minefield now, just
It
navigating
really
the
is.
grocery
I
store.
know.
You guys know that obviously in your business. So luckily we have companies like Primal Kitchen that are very aware, are using clean ingredients,
Yeah,
clean oils, and giving people those options.
for sure.
But it's still, the awareness around that needs to, we need to build that. But when patients come to me and they want to know, always one of the first questions is, what do I eat?
Yeah,
No, what the heck do I eat?
totally.
It's like almost one of the most overwhelming things for them
Yeah,
because again, a lot of women or they're not only cooking for themselves, they're cooking
a
for
family. Yeah.
family, kids, husbands that maybe aren't on board with the
Yeah.
whole eating clean approach. So there's a lot of dynamics that we run into there, but I try to use data as much as possible to really get people moving in the right direction with whatever diet strategy we're doing. And again, the diet that I may recommend for you during chemotherapy might look very different than the diet that we do long
Post treatment.
post treatment when you're in remission.
Got it.
So, but we look at nutrient levels. We want to make sure they're not deficient in key nutrients, of course, vitamin D and minerals and things like that, antioxidants, polyphenols. But more so, we have to figure out, because everyone's a little different. There's not one diet for everybody.
Yeah.
So we do nutrition genome testing, which looks at do they have certain SNPs where they need to, eat certain foods because if they eat these foods, they're only going to get the precursors and their bodies can't convert.
Interesting.
So, we even go down to that level for
Got it.
people and really customize it.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So cool. Okay. So I want to know, I feel like we've got a lot of info now on just like treatment. You've had a diagnosis, but
Mhm.
what about prevention? What else are you doing for prevention? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I
What's
mean,
your protocol for all of this? Knowing what you know.
well, I don't claim to be perfect, but I do try to be mindful about I've really reduced the amount of just products that I use. Like when you go in my bathroom or my shower or my kitchen, like I try to just simplify things as much
Yeah.
as possible. And, the few products I do use, I try to make sure that they're not chock full of
Yeah.
chemicals and known carcinogens.
There's so many options now on that.
There's a lot about
Yeah,
even just compared to 5, 10 years ago.
totally.
It's like now you can find anything you really want on the internet,
Yeah.
get it shipped right to your house. You don't even need to really go to a store. Honestly, you can usually find better stuff
Yeah.
online. Um, but yeah, and then, you can use resources like the Environmental Working Group database to vet everything from your household cleaning supplies to your cosmetics to your
Sunscreen.
toothpaste to your
Yeah,
sunscreen,
totally.
your deodorant. And then I love to cook. So I really take ownership in like everything that goes into a meal that I prepare for. I eat out every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I don't go crazy. Like if I go out to eat, like I'm not like, oh my gosh, like
My one
is
meal
that
out.
is
Yeah.
that 100% gluten free,
Oh,
organic, all that. I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna enjoy myself
yeah.
because I know the other 90% of the time I'm doing what I need to do. The fasting's huge. And then I have all my little biohack things that I cold plunges and saunas and
Yeah. Tell us more about those biohack things. Okay. Cold plunge sauna.
cold plunges and saunas. I mean, that those two things I think are just game changers for people. If
Interesting.
you and you can set those things up. I know you see very expensive versions of those things online, but you can set it up for less than $500.
Yeah.
You can buy the portable saunas. They have really good ones
That
that
you
you
just
can
lay
dip up
in.
in,
Yeah.
or even the sleeping bag style ones.
Yeah.
A cold plunge, you can go buy a metal tank at Home Depot out in their garden section, fill it up with ice water.
Yeah.
That's easy as that. Or even just an ice bucket and put your face in there. I
Yeah.
mean, you
Or
can get the
just
best
turn your shower
or
cold at the end of
showers.
every shower. Yeah.
Yeah. But these are hacks that everyone can be doing basically.
Yeah.
You can't really say like, oh, I can't afford that.
And I mean, one of my girlfriends bought a sauna for used. Like you can actually get some pretty good deals on some of that stuff. I was like, I would never think to look for that, but
Yeah.
She found like,
Like on Craigslist or something?
yeah, like on eBay. She actually ended up buying Courtney Cox's sauna because she was upgrading to a
Oh,
bigger one, but she didn't know until after she bought it. Shout out to Anne if you're listening. But
she might
yeah,
have
she
bought it for a
got it
different
for
reason.
really cheap, like she didn't know until she went to pick it up. But I was like, oh, that's really smart. There's a lot of
Surprised Courtney Cox is selling saunas
she
on
got a
eBay.
well, I don't know, not it was on like Craigslist or something because she's local. It was a pickup one. It wasn't an
No, I
eBay.
think that's great.
It
That's
is
cool. It's
great.
like she's
Yeah.
a regular person
Yeah, she's
reselling a
everybody's yeah,
sauna.
why what else am I gonna do with this thing? I'm getting the $40,000 sauna. She was doubling down. That's
Yeah,
why she
yeah,
was getting in a bigger one. Okay.
yeah.
So you're doing the cold plunge, you're doing the sauna, you're fasting once a week, you do the Prolon once a year,
Mhm.
you're eating well.
Yeah.
What supplements are you
I do
taking?
some IVs too,
You
I
do.
throw
Okay, what does
that
that mean? Here and there, like once a month?
once a month. I'm good for a vitamin C IV. I like ozone therapy. That's another one that is great for supporting detox.
Okay, wait, before we go to the ozone therapy, there's a lot of like we're in Southern California,
Yeah.
so but I think this is in most metro areas these days, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of IV places you can
IV
go.
bars,
Yeah, and
hangover bars, IV
exactly.
nutrition. Yeah.
Yes. So you're just going or you're probably doing it yourself at somewhere, but
Yeah. I
and
mean,
you're just doing vitamin C. You're not doing anything else in there like B vitamins or anything like that.
when I do vitamin C, I usually don't put anything else in there. You
Got it.
can do, a lot of these places will have like a nutrition cocktail or sometimes referred to as a Myers cocktail. And that has like a little bit of vitamin C, B complex, magnesium, trace minerals. That's good if you're just feeling run down,
But
it's
you like
feeling
to go
good.
higher dose on the vitamin
I like to
C.
do a high dose every once in a while just to kind of like, I just feel like it's a clean
What
sweep.
is a high dose?
Generally, when we're talking high dose, it's 50 grams and above. So
Okay,
50,000 milligrams. Normally orally, you're taking maybe a few thousand milligrams,
got it.
50,000.
And what do you do when you're getting sick?
Um, it depends on sick, but just like the general cold and
Yeah.
flu, that type of stuff. Um, well, I'm like a super fever producer.
Oh, you got real
So
high fever.
and yeah, so usually I get a really high fever and I sweat it out one night and then I'm good the next day.
Interesting.
That's me personally.
You just let the fever do its
I
thing.
just let it run its course, and it sucks. You can do cold, wet socks, which helps.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
You probably heard of that. You can take extra vitamin C and zinc, and normally will fast when I get sick, and I'll try to just
Do
it's ju
nothing.
like, yeah, like, I can almost feel like, I'm 43 now, so, like, I've been sick enough that I can almost feel it in the back of my
Oh,
throat.
yeah, I
Like,
always can
people
feel it in the back
know,
of my
you're
throat.
like you're like, "I'm not sick now, but 12
I will
hours from
be
now,
tomorrow.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
be sick." So, I'm really in tune with, like, listening to my body, like, when it says this, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm I gotta go
cancel
lay
the
down.
day.
Cancel the day. I can't go out tonight. I was gonna go meet friends. I'm staying home.
Yeah,
I'm taking my stuff. I'm drinking my tea. I'm chilling." And then usually I can head it off. But if I do get sick, luckily I've been able to my body produces a great fever, which, we've been taught to kind of fear fevers and treat them and suppress them. And it's like, no, that's the exact opposite of
yeah,
what we should be doing.
yeah, I don't get fevers very often, but when I get sick, I don't know, I'm not a great fever producer, but
Some people
I'm
aren't.
very sensitive to fevers. If I have even a little bit of fever, I feel
Feel
awful, like I'm
awful.
gonna pass out,
Yeah.
like it's
Well,
yeah,
you don't need much, I mean, some people can run a very high fever easily, but even if you just get your body up to about 100, 100.5, you can normally wipe out
okay,
you can wipe out most bugs with that.
yeah. I try to let my kids run their course too, unless, like, they can't sleep, then I
If
do
they're
not
really
let them.
miserable, I've got 2 kids, and yeah, I mean, like, we keep some ibuprofen on hand just in case when they're really, really miserable, but we've trained them a little bit too to kinda be like, "All right, like, this'll be you'll get over it faster
Yeah,
if
like, we
you,
can
like,
get through
grit through it."
tonight,
Right,
totally.
right, and the cold wet socks helps with the kids too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Alright, sorry, I was just wondering if, like, you run to the IV clinic right when you start to get sick or anything like
No,
that.
luckily, I'm able to kinda do some of that stuff on my
You
own,
can
but I would. I mean, I think IV therapies are one of the best ways to, again, sort of hack the system, right?
Yeah,
You can get those nutrients directly into the bloodstream, directly into the cells a lot easier than trying to shovel things down.
okay. Alright, so now we're going on to ozone therapy. What's ozone
Mhm.
therapy?
Ozone. So, another typically given IV therapy, but ozone is a gas. It's O3, so it's
Right,
oxygen plus like another molecule, and so you make it from oxygen. So you hook an oxygen tank up to what's called an ozone generator. It scatters all those O molecules and for a brief period of time, some of those O's come back as O3s, not O2s, and you can collect it that way. And then this gas happens to be antibacterial, antiviral, like
So it's just like a machine
it's a machine.
that you have at your house. Okay. And you breathe it
Well,
in.
you can get one in your house, yeah. Typically they'll be in medical settings, but you can get
Like a is this hyperbaric oxygen or that's
not
something
hyperbaric
different? Okay.
oxygen. Hyperbaric oxygen is pressurized oxygen, like almost like you're doing a dive, like when you go
Okay.
down. So that can force more oxygen into your body, which is another potential therapy for people. But ozone is typically the most common way we do it in like a clinic setting is we'll generate some ozone gas and then we'll pull some blood out of a patient, mix it with that ozone gas, and
Oh,
then give it back and give their blood almost like we're purifying their
yeah.
blood
Okay.
and giving it back to them. And what that does is it creates it for number one, it oxygenates their blood. Number two, it wipes out any um, bugs or foreign invaders that are in the bloodstream that the immune system's having trouble overcoming. It also can really help stimulate detox processes in the body.
Interesting.
And so when you're detoxing people, because again, I talked about a lot of people's cancer issues go back to toxins. So when we get them through their chemotherapy or whatever, then I'm like, okay, now it's time to get all that crap out of you.
Yeah.
And so ozone becomes a very good tool
After chemo,
after
almost like a
chemotherapy.
probiotic after an antibiotic.
Exactly. It's like, okay, we're going to not only help detox you from all the treatments, but we're going to help deal with whatever those root cause toxins are:
Interesting.
plastics, pesticides, molds, metals.
So you're doing that on a routine basis.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, detox is a big part of what I
Yeah.
do because, again, we got to deal with the root cause issues. Otherwise, you know, you're setting yourself up for this thing to keep coming back.
Yeah. So that's one of your, what other biohacking things are you doing?
I don't really like to use the word biohacking. I really see this as like biohacking to me, it almost feels like it's like you're cheating, you're taking shortcuts or
Yeah.
something like that. But I mean, it's just being smart about understanding what are the biological requirements for the body, what are these things that are actually leading to disease, and then how do we address them? And so, whether it's ozone therapy or whether it's fasting or whether it's making diet changes or using off-label drugs like it's all about identifying the patient in front of me's issues, putting that puzzle together, and then matching a treatment plan to deal with that. And like I said, we every step of the way, at the time of diagnosis, pre-surgery, during treatment, after, long
Got it.
term, we're just
Yeah.
continually trying to heal their terrain and their soil and make it the most inhospitable place for cancer cells to grow.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what supplements are you on?
Me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah. I
I
want to
mean,
know
I
about your
I
protocol.
take a pretty basic stack of stuff.
Okay.
It's like vitamin D, vitamin C, fish oil. I do take methylene blue,
You do
not all the time, but
sometimes. Okay.
occasionally, yeah. Um, and I take a boatload of
What's
magnesium.
a boatload? Like 1,000 milligrams?
Yeah, probably more than that.
Really?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
form are you taking?
So I actually do different types. I take magnesium glycinate mostly during the day, but then at bedtime I take what's called magnesium threonate, which is
Yeah.
also known as like neuromag.
Okay.
It's the only type of magnesium that crosses the blood-brain barrier.
Oh,
So
interesting.
it's great for sleep, relaxing the brain at
Okay.
night. If you have headaches,
Oh, so I need that
oh, magnesium, it's a game changer.
for I
Game
mean,
changer.
I take magnesium, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like my magnesium journey started out with magnesium citrate, which was very effective for constipation.
Yes,
And
that's how most people.
yeah, but then I feel like I've evolved past the citrate now, but I didn't
Glycinate,
know.
yeah, the glycinate's great for muscle tension.
But
And
for my migraines, I need the three
the
and eight.
3 and 8 for any headaches, migraines, or for sleep,
Interesting. Okay.
support, yeah.
I need that before bed. All
Yeah,
right.
so those are kind of base. I mean, I take a fiber product, probiotics, things like that.
What fiber product?
Just regular old psyllium husk.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just the OG psyllium
Yeah.
husk.
And
But
probiotic, do you have a specific kind you like?
I like to rotate my probiotics,
Yeah,
believe it or
Mark
not.
too.
Yeah,
He's good.
because, you want to promote as much diversity as possible. So if you just continually taking the same 4 lactobacillus strains every day or whatever, um, you kind of tend to just grow those certain types
Yeah.
of bugs, and you really want the diversity as much as possible. So I'll rotate different ones. The more strains they have in them, the better. But then, the probiotics themselves aren't enough. You also have to eat the types of foods again, most of it's the fiber that feeds those bugs.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's about it though. I don't do anything really crazy with supplements. I probably have 5 or 6 things I take every day.
Yeah. Are you like pro meat or anti meat, or do you have a strong feeling on red meat or no?
I'm really only anti junk food.
Got it.
Yeah.
I like that.
And even then, like, I mean, I'll have some chips every once in a
Yeah.
while. Well, I'll eat some packaged foods every once in a while, but I really try to make sure that they're, things that are made with good oils and,
Yeah.
make those smart decisions. But I'm not anti-meat, I'm not vegan, I'm not, carnivore or any of those really restrictive type diets. I think that 90% of the diet problems come from
Ultra
ultra
processed
processed
food.
foods.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The meat, all the studies that have been done showing issues with meat, they don't differentiate between
Hot dogs and
meat
filet
that's
mignon.
meat that's coming from very sick animals versus meat that's been, sustainably grown
Yeah.
on a farm and organic and fed the right stuff. And, so to me, I don't really look at that data and say, oh yeah, meat's bad.
Yeah.
It's, we look at how these animals are being treated.
Totally.
Like, I mean, we're accumulating all that, not only what's in their feed, but then what they're being treated with, the hormones, the antibiotics. It's
Yeah. Okay. What are some, I'm trying to think, like, I feel like you've covered a lot on just
we've been
a
around the world a few
lot.
times here.
Yeah. What do you think the most exciting new therapies are that are going to come out for cancer? Like,
Mm,
what are you keeping your eye on that you're like, this could be interesting? Or
that's
is
a good
there,
question.
are you kind of there? That's what you're
I
working
mean,
with.
I try to live on that edge,
Yeah.
so I don't know if there's anything that's coming down. I mean, more so on the conventional side, because I watch what's going on that
Yeah.
side
Yeah.
very closely. I mean, these immunotherapy drugs that have come out in the last 5 or 10 years, I'd say if you really wanted to point to anything that they've sort of had a breakthrough with, it's those types of drugs.
And what are those again?
So you probably see commercials for the drugs like Keytruda,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Opdivo, and so
But when
these
you
are
said they were
immunotherapy. So
immunotherapy. Okay.
immune system.
Got it.
So most of the way that these drugs work is they take the brakes off the immune system, right? You can think of your
So
immune
it's like an immunosuppressant or no?
no, the
It's
opposite.
opposite. Okay. It revs
So
up your immune system.
exactly. So
Got
if you
it.
think of your immune system like a race car, it's basically like taking the governor or the brakes off of that. It's just making it go as fast as possible, which is great for cancer, because you can think of maybe every time that car goes around the track, it's getting rid of cancer cells. But if the race car is not in good shape in other ways, and you're just making it go as fast as possible, eventually it's going to crash into the turn.
Yeah.
And that's why we see that these drugs only work for about 20-30% of people.
Oh,
But when they
interesting.
work, they do work
They
really
really
well.
work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are there huge side effects?
There can be. Again, when you ramp up
So
the
you got to kind of keep,
immune system too much, and these people whose immune systems are not,
you get autoimmune issues.
you get the
Yeah.
autoimmune conditions. Yeah. And I've seen patients that the last 2 years, they've had colitis, they've been off the drug now for 2 years. They still have the problem. It doesn't, it doesn't necessarily go away.
Crazy.
So yeah, there is significant side effects, not the same ones that you see with like traditional chemo, but there's a lot of
Different
things that
ones.
can really, yeah, really put people in a bad spot long term.
Okay, this is controversial one, so I'm going to ask you, but what do you think about like peptides, and specifically, I'm curious your thoughts on Ozempic, the hottest drug to be
Now,
discussed.
well, you're kind of getting me out of my niche here.
Okay.
So
Well, you don't have to go there, but I'm
I
curious
mean,
if you do any peptide therapy or anything
I
like that.
don't personally. I have follow. I mean, obviously, how can you not follow kind of the press releases on these Ozempic drugs?
Yeah.
And I think that people got to be careful with them. I
Yeah.
think that we're going to eventually learn that there's some significant downside to them, and that
Yeah.
they're not just these miracle. Peptides. That term. I think people think that they're kind of harmless. They're just amino acids,
Right.
but like, I mean, insulin's a peptide.
Yeah.
These are more drug like than they are nutrient like,
Yeah.
and I think that there absolutely can be a place for them in medicine. Unfortunately, the FDA's really kind of put a hard ban on a lot of those now,
On the peptides. Yeah.
peptides,
Yeah.
because they know they can make money. They know
Yeah.
there's going to be a huge market for these things. They want to control it, and there is some safety issues with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because it's coming a lot of like compounded pharmacies and stuff. I am like, I had a obesity doctor on the podcast like over a year ago. So I was like, it was just kind of the grumblings of Ozempic.
Yeah.
I personally feel like they've been like, I think that I think there's more positive than there is negative. This is controversial, but I feel like I was listening to some doctor this week who was like, they were like originally researched for like neurological conditions. Like there are some benefits for Alzheimer's, but I think this is where what kind of reminded me of it, what you were saying last time. Like the people who it seems like are using them with the least amount of side effects are like microdosing. They're not
Yeah.
like
Yeah. The
I
body
think
just
you
needs a
run into
nudge.
problems when like, I don't know if they've got the dosing quite figured out there yet, but anyway, this totally off topic, but I'm
No,
just
but
curious.
to your point, I do think, I mean, obviously we know obesity is a big risk factor for not only
For everything,
cancer, but
yeah,
all chronic diseases. And it's a really, it's becoming a big problem in our country.
yeah,
Now, we should be talking about all the things that cause the obesity issue,
for
the
sure.
obesogens and all these chemicals that are causing us to store all these fat cells to deal with toxins. But instead, we basically created a problem and we've created a solution,
Yeah,
right? And so that's kind of how our system works. And so, but yeah, I still think that, I net out that if someone's able to lose
60 pounds and they're
60
obese, the
pounds,
benefits outweigh the
like
risk.
absolutely. I
Yeah,
mean, that's where I even, would say, weight loss surgery can be the right option for some
yeah,
people. Like it all just depends on their their
totally,
their, their individual situation.
totally. Okay, I
Yeah.
have a few more like rapid fire ones for you.
All right.
This is amazing, but who's inspiring you these days?
Mm, my patience?
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. I mean,
we didn't touch on this, but like what kind of what's the term you use in oncology? Like survival rates, or like what are you seeing in your practice? Like how hopeful or scared should people feel?
I'm very hopeful. My patients do well. I'm not saying that we're, curing stage 4 cancer left and right, but
Yeah,
I mean, I continually, day in and day out, see patients that, are outliving whatever expiration date they were given,
yeah,
or, were sent home on hospice or palliative care and told there was nothing left that could be done. And I got one guy that came to me. It's probably the most miraculous case I've ever had, but he came to me pre-pandemic, like literally a month before the pandemic. So early 2020,
okay.
stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which most
Pancreatic cancer is not
pancreatic is not
not a
good. I
good one.
mean,
Yeah,
most, you know, the old saying, which is kind of a terrible saying, but the saying is, if you don't do any treatment with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, you'll live 6 months. If you do treatment, you'll be dead in half a year. So
oh god,
it's like it's really bad statistics.
yeah,
Less than 1% 5-year survival.
wow,
Okay. So we're talking about a very, very deadly aggressive disease. Comes to me, stage 4. He had already done a year of chemo. He had already done both of the standard approved lines of chemotherapy. They did not work.
okay.
It had spread to his spine. And on top of that, he had developed a MRSA infection in his spine that left him paralyzed below the waist.
Oh my
So
god,
he literally comes to me. His wife wheels him in a wheelchair. And I don't know. I mean, I looked at him and I was trying to be compassionate and hopeful. But at the end of the day, I just kind of told, I said, I don't know if I can help you. He'd been sent on hospice.
yeah,
To me, by every stretch of my imagination, he looked like someone that his days were numbered.
yeah,
But his wife, as usually is the case, the wife usually she would not take no for an answer. She said, "We understand. Thank you for being honest with us, but
what can we do?
what can we do? We'll be here every day. Tell us what to do. We want to try." Okay, let's try. So we just did it one day at a time. But they were in my clinic literally 3, 4 days a week. And luckily they had the means to do this. Because again, one thing we haven't discussed here, but a lot of this is out of pocket.
Yeah,
It's very
yeah,
expensive, especially if you're doing these IV therapies 3, 4 days a week. He had the means to do it. 3, 4, 5, 6 months go by. He's still coming in. I don't know if we're really making any headway. No markers were really improving. He wasn't, he still had no feeling below his waist. He's still in a lot of back
and you're
pain.
doing kind of all the things we
We're
just
doing
talked
everything.
about. Okay.
We're doing everything. I mean, this was one of the few cases where I was like, screw it. We're throwing the kitchen sink
Yeah,
at,
yeah, okay.
because again, he had the means to do it too.
Yeah,
But about the 7, 8 month mark, he starts getting a little
feeling
movement
better?
in his
Oh,
toes, a little movement in his toes. So I'm like, okay, that's a good sign. Hadn't done any scans or anything. We were just like, okay, we're just gonna take this one day at a
yeah,
time. If you feel good, we'll keep doing it. We were watching blood blood markers and stuff. But
And he had left the oncology, like
they
they
said, "That's what they don't have to do.
can
They
do
don't
for
have to do."
you. Goodbye.
Exactly. And even that, I mean, they had given him that stamp. They were like,
Yeah.
"You've got 2 weeks to live." They love to like give you that,
Oh,
like,
God.
I'm gonna predict the day that you're gonna die.
Yeah.
I hate that. But
Yeah. This ego on these doctors.
it gets
Okay.
better because there's
Okay.
there's a full circle moment with the
Okay.
doctor. But so after about a year, he was starting to get his legs were moving. He was able to stand up, kind of hobble a little bit. Wow, this is crazy. And we were actually doing ozone injections, the gas directly into his spine where the MRSA infection was. Because again, like I mentioned, ozone is really good at clearing infections.
Yeah.
So we saw some momentum there. And then it was probably about the year and a half mark. He came in one day and I'm just like looking around and I'm like, "Where's your wheelchair?" And he's like, "I don't need that damn thing anymore."
Yeah.
Completely walking on his own. He was doing some physical therapy and stuff too, which was helping him build his muscles back up. But his MRSA infection had cleared. He went back to the infectious disease doctor. They said, like, how is this possible? I mean, they had no answer. I mean, they were just jaws on the floor. Like, we don't know what you did, but yeah, your MRSA infection's cleared.
Crazy.
Crazy. Still hadn't gone back to the oncologist at this point, but we were measuring his tumor markers in his blood. There's a CA 19-9 marker that's very um, reflective of pancreatic cancer. So when it's going up, we know that the cancer's growing, when
Okay.
it's going down. So his 19-9, it had kind of been plateaued for the first 6 months, 8 months. Eventually, that after a year mark, it started coming down. He started losing weight, but like good weight. He had weight to lose, but he started losing weight. We were still doing treatments day in and day out. But finally, at that like 2 year mark, we got a scan. And I'll tell you, Morgan, like I've never had like this type of a chill feeling, but
Yeah.
like
I have goosebumps.
it was completely clear.
Stop it.
Cancer free, no evidence of disease. I mean, this was a miracle, you know,
That's
a
crazy.
complete miracle. And the best news is he eventually did go back to the oncologist. The oncologist said, um, basically, uh, you shouldn't be here. I don't know what you did, but I don't think I can treat you. I don't think I have anything for you. Keep doing what you're doing.
Crazy.
I mean, they were just basically
Were they like,
speechless.
"What have you been doing?" Did he
No,
tell them? They didn't even
they
ask.
didn't even really want to
Oh
know,
my.
which is kind of just
Yeah.
that's
Come on.
sketchy.
Yeah.
Um, but
Wow.
yeah, that was 4 years ago, and I mean, I talked to him maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
Doing great.
So he still comes in like once a year, half every 6 months and gets some blood work done and
Still cancer free.
crazy. And so
Yeah.
do you have cases like this frequently? I mean,
I mean,
stage 4 is a little that's
he's an
really
outlier.
extreme.
He's an outlier, but I've got lots of different stage 4 cancer patients that are, were told 2 years ago that, there's nothing else. Get your affairs in order.
Yeah.
So yeah, so when you ask me,
Do I have hope?
do I have hope for my patients? Yeah. I mean, now the patients that are out there and don't really know about all these things that they can be doing to stack the odds in their favor, and they're just doing the cookie cutter stuff. That's where, when you look at statistics and you're like, man, this doesn't look good.
Yeah.
So, but for my patients, I have hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, such a good story to end on. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question that I ask everyone, but what's something most people don't know about you?
That's a good one. Um, I'm a huge, actually, yeah, probably nobody outside my family knows this, but I'm a huge like puzzler,
Oh, I love it.
crosswords,
Oh, okay, crosswords.
Wordle, jigsaw puzzles. Like
All of
I've
them.
always got like I probably do 1,000 piece puzzle every 2 weeks.
I
Like I have a
love it.
big table down in my basement. I mean, it's like how I like if I'm thinking about patients or like I know I can just go like work on a puzzle.
I
Like
love a
just get
puzzle.
out of my head.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a huge puzzle. New York Times, crossword on the paper every Sunday,
Yeah.
Wordle,
It's good for Alzheimer's
all that stuff. Yeah.
prevention, all
Yeah.
of these things. Great.
Yeah. So I'm a huge puzzler. And I think that's one of the things that draws me to medicine and particularly cancer is every patient's just a puzzle put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much. I like learned so much. I feel moved. I'm excited about your stage 4 pancreatic cancer patient. Can you tell everyone, like, have you written any books or like, where can we follow you on social media? People
Yeah.
want to know how to reach you. Give us the plugs.
Yeah. So websites, drlucas.org, doctor spelled out. I'm at Dr. Lucas on Instagram. That's where I'm most active on social media. A book's in the works.
Cool.
So we'll keep you posted on that one.
I love it.
But
Thank you so much.
thank you, Morgan. Thanks for having me.